You're laughing at. Children, sit quietly. We shall wait for the rest of the class to arrive before we begin the lesson. No laughing. Serious stuff. I am Professor Level. That's enough now, children. What are you going to say now? Yes, I am Professor Level. I am Professor. Bow tie, glasses, shirt. Intelligence. Intellect. I'm right, you're wrong. You will listen. And that's about it. So hopefully the other children are here and we can get on with the class. I am 00 Scientist's brother. Yes, you can call me Dr. Level. That other angry man, he'll not be here this evening. So, where do we begin? I mean, I'm just perplexed at where we kick this class off. It's a bit warm in these glasses, so I may have to ditch them. Yeah. Can I say? All joking aside, it's a very serious matter. We're here to discuss science and scientifical stuffs. So we'll be having a look at scientifical stuffs and see what other people are saying about scientifical stuffs. Because I have to tell you, there's some real morons out there. You may be thinking I look like a moron, but I'm intelligent. As I said before, bow tie, glasses, shirt. It's a given. I'm intelligent. So, we'll be having a look at some of these peoples. See what they've got to offer us. I don't know where to begin. What did I write? Professors of stupid. Yes, let's have a look at a professor of stupid. Shall we? Hello class, how are we? David Marks, Peter McLaughlin, Tony Dixon, Alfredo, Phil Jones. Can you put your hand up so that I know you're here? If you need to go to the toilet, you need to put your hand up as well. So says it's kind of warm in these glasses here. I'm sweating my tits off. Can you take me seriously now? Is this better than the angry, profound profanity man? Is this better? Is this more palatable? Acceptable? Are more scientifical guys going to step forward and have a chinwag with a fellow professor? Andy Borthwick, glad you could make it. What time do you call this? Highway Child, Tracy Storier, Party Pack, Ute, Bates and Jesty Dread, Emerald Rider. Havoc, Mr. Weaverman, One Conscience. Doberman Cop, Mikey Smith. Pragmatic, yes here, well done. A bit late, but hey-ho, You can carry on at the end for an extra 5 minutes. Killsteel, just asked. Doberman, Anders Ace, Mr. Golden V. Drax, Ready Code, Ute, Newt11, Pico, hello there. Grissu, FPV Angel. McBailey, Selling Alien. See, told you. My other friend, he has problems even saying that. That shows you the level of my intellect. Selling Alien. Just rattles right off the tongue. Easy. The glasses and the bow tie give me superpowers. Bridal Endo. Steve, Seek and Find. Jimbo Con, Tony Dixon. Blood is thicker than water. Bathroom break? Did you put your hand up, son? You can just bloody well hold it in until the end of the class. You're here to train your brain to be a good little puppy. Yes, do as you're told. So you can hold your bodily functions. Have you no discipline, son? What if I look at you through the top of the glasses? It's a little bit more sinister. You tend to pay attention. If I give you the angry eye, is that going to intimidate you into believing in absurdities like bending oceans? The oceans are bent. Yes. Yes, you can have a pressurised system uncontained adjacent to a vacuum. No, I know there's no curve anywhere, but trust me, it's there, son. You just don't understand, and I'm here to bloody well sort you out. Professors drink tea and smoke a lot, so you'll just need to let me ease in to the class, get my tea levels and my nicotine levels up to scratch, and then we're ready to go. I say, hopefully there's some other professors here. You believe it's a globe? You've got more than detention. You've got more than detention. You're coming into the cupboard with me, sorry buddy. That's right, Daniel. Well done. If you don't eat your meat, you cannot have any pudding. Not Del Daniels. Professor level, I will have you know. 00 scientist's brother. So anyhow, I have to remove my glasses. A wee bit sweaty on those. I know you maybe can't take me as seriously without the glasses. Instantly, I become a male stripper. Now I'm back to nerdy professor. Jack of all trades me. Very versatile. Anywho, right. Get my apparatus sorted out. As all professors should have. I'm just about ready. Wished. Children, calm yourselves. Aye. Clark Kent doesn't have a look in. So anyhow, let's have a wee look. We'll start with Professors of Stupid. We'll start with this Professor of Stupid. This guy calls himself Professor Philbert. So, let's have a wee listen to what Professor Phil Bell has to offer us.
Okay, no laughing, anybody, okay? You know, I know you're going to feel like laughing when I say this, but...
Very teacher-like. Bit like myself. Doesn't have as much charisma, right enough.
No laughing, this is very serious, okay? There are actual people who think the Earth is flat. So this little lecture is to try and demonstrate some of the questions that they have. All right, so they continuously say things like...
Professor Phil Bell, I've been asking, you know, myself and my other brothers have been asking continually for discussions with other professors. Where are you?
It's like, water always lies flat.
No. Water will find its level. Water has no form. Water will seek the lowest potential energetic state. The surface is a free surface which will form a horizontal plane, equal in any elevation at any given point of the body of standing water. That's what's been stated to you, sir. I don't know why you have to tell lies about people and play word games. Level is level. There may be waves occurring on top of the body of water, but you cannot even suggest that a body of water is being bent around the exterior of an object or shape, and then suggest that it's going to display a silhouette of that topography upon its surface. What kind of scientist are you, son?
Okay, that's one of their big mantras. So let's see if we some examples that we can put up before we go on to some more detailed stuff.
Some more detailed stuff. Drawings on a whiteboard. Scribblings. Very detailed. But he says he's a professor. He's wearing a suit. So it must be true.
Let's look at some of the simple stuff, like water always lies flat. Well, clearly it doesn't. Example number 1.
It's a play on words. This man is displaying intellectual dishonesty already. And it baffles me why other scientists, like this guy, display this level of ignorance and lying. I wonder if he has some ulterior motive, some agenda that he's trying to perpetuate.
Tides. Notice here we've got low tide, high tide. All the water's gone at low tide. If you go to the beach, where did all the water go? Well,
what has that got to do with water seeking its level? I don't mean seeking its level like it's a person looking for a pub to have a pint in, like it's got a character and a personality. It's just the words that are used. It's a natural phenomena that you could observe, test, predict, if you weren't so bloody lazy. So I don't know what tides have got to do with water seeking level. And level meaning no deviation in elevation from the starting point to any other given point upon that surface. These are just facts. I don't really know where you're going with this.
if you represent that on a diagram, you can see we've got low tide, here's the ground, and we've got high tide. So it's obviously accumulating somewhere else.
And how are you going? How do you explain tides, although it's irrelevant to what we're discussing? But I know how you explain tides. I need to see myself here. So that's right. That's right. Mr. Professor here. So here we have a body of water. Here we have a moon. Mr. Professor here thinks that this object here somehow affects this object here. This stuff, this water. He thinks that this pulls this towards itself. How does he imagine that's happening? Does he imagine that this is casting out an endless amount of invisible fishing lines and attaching on to every molecule of water and then winding it in so that the water goes ooh, like that, and then when it decides to let it go, it lets it go, and then it comes back to the level it was at? That's what professors like him actually believe. Or something like that. We'll come back to this spooky action at a distance, objects affecting other objects by way of magic. Let's continue to listen to what he's got to say.
It doesn't just disappear, it accumulates somewhere else. So, low tide, high tide.
Assertions. He is asserting that it's accumulating somewhere else. How does he know it's not some sort of filtration system? Like we can observe and we can demonstrate, that we apply in many aspects of living. Filtration systems where levels go down and they go up, down and up. What about thermal expansion? The fact that we have a body that's generating an enormous amount of heat. Water expands and vaporizes with heat and then condenses with cold. So we could look at many varying aspects of tides. I still don't understand what he's waffling about here when he's trying to deny that bodies of water, standing bodies of water, are indeed level. Level meaning no deviation in elevation from the starting point to the end point. That's what level means. That's how water behaves. That's what we know. That's what we observe. That's what we test. That's what we apply in everyday life.
Flat. All right, let's go for another example. How about this one? Inside a test tube. We have a look at this. This is called the meniscus.
Well, I feel...
It's not flat.
I feel the professor is entering into the fallacious grounds of false equivalence. A test tube, surface tension, meniscus, adhesion is in no way, shape or form a representation of a vast standing body of water. As you increase the width of that test tube to beyond something like 2.5 inches, you will no longer see that effect. And I don't know if Professor Phil Bell is aware that oceans and lakes are a wee bit bigger than a test tube. So just as predicted and suspected, we're entering into the realms of false equivalence. Cherry picking. I think he is trying to brainwash people into believing absurdities.
Look at this one over here. That's a puddle on the floor. Now, if we look at the puddle side on, we'll see that the puddle is raised a little bit. Because it didn't flow everywhere, it's still in the shape of a puddle. So,
well, it's the shape of a puddle. A puddle is defined by a shape, apparently. Professor, what would happen if you bent the ground underneath the puddle? Would it remain as a puddle, or would it flow off of the deviation in elevation from the highest point to the lowest point? I think you will find that it will no longer be a puddle. It would be two puddles, flowing to the lowest point, welling up, forming a free surface of a horizontal plane, which is the lowest energetic potential state.
Logically, it's...
Logically, it's not bloody flat, I think he's going to say. No, but it's still level. You seem to be focusing in on the word flat. Why are you obsessed with the word flat? Most bodies of water have motion, waves, wind, current, temperature, all playing a role in affecting the motion of the water. But as a whole, the standing body of water can in no way, shape or form bend. Again, I have to point out to you. You cannot have the surface of a body of water and then at some arbitrary point start to lower it here and expect the water to follow said topography of underneath. That is retarded. What are you talking about?
Flat. Okay. They're trying very hard not to make a noise. That's good. Okay.
I would be trying very hard not to run up and drop kick you right in the throat. So far, you are an utter cretinous moron, lying, deceptive torag. You should not be let loose on other people's children to waffle your gobbledygook. You are a danger to an impressionable mind, sir. And I, Professor Level, and my brother, 00 Scientist, are going to make damn sure that you do not get your grubby little hands on any impressionable children.
So, let's look at this one. We have a wet basketball. Look, we've damaged some of the balls. Got rid of it there. Okay.
I'm pretty sure my other alter ego friend was slated, no end, for displaying that water cannot stick to a ball. Now we have Professor drawing circles on a whiteboard, insisting it is a basketball, and I think I can guess what he's going to say.
Okay. A wet basketball. We took a basketball and we wet it. And the water is still around it because it's wet. If I throw it at you...
Because of adhesion. Not all of basketball. And I bet you're going to say a wet basketball is a representation of Earth because scaled down, it represents the scale of the Earth. I don't bloody well think so. I do not bloody well. Your mental gymnastics are absolutely atrocious. Are you trying to tell me that the Atlantic Ocean is now being represented by dipping a basketball in water? Really, Professor? Really?
Lots of water will go on you because the basketball is wet.
Genius. Absolute genius. Throw a wet ball at somebody and water will go on them. Wow. Mind blown. Learned something new today, Professor. Thank you for that.
If you're not sure what wet means, spill some water on yourself. That's what wet means. You are now wet.
What a condescending shit stain. Condescending little twat. Stop speaking down to people, you complete and utter fud. Who do you think you are? I think you need your bum skelt so that you wind your neck in a wee bit.
Water will stick to you. You are wet. We call...
Yes, when you go for a shower, note that the water gathers around you. And when you come out the water, you have a half a metre deep water covering that you need to dab off or something.
All that wet. Wet means there's a layer of water around the basketball.
Caused by adhesion, not all over the water ball. And that again is a misrepresentation, false equivalence, because you and your likes insist that there is a magical imaginary pulling force, pulling all the water onto your space rock. As I said before, we'll be having a look at this pulling nonsense after we listen to the rest of your drivel.
Now, if you scale this basketball to the size of the Earth...
You cannot scale your concept at all. I challenge thee and any other professor to scale down and show me a scaled representation of your globular Earth using the actual substances that you are professing are part of the objective reality. That means no plasticine, no sellotape, no whiteboards, no plastic, water, rock, dirt, here on Earth. Can you demonstrate the absurd claim? No, you bloody well cannot, which is why you're drawing it on a whiteboard. Now, if you cannot give me a scaled representation of what you're claiming, I have to ignore it as utter lunacy. Because if it was actually real, you could scale it. You should know that, being a professor now.
You'll find that the thickness of the wet surface around the basketball is more than the oceans.
The thickness of the water on your basketball is more than the oceans. I think we should tie some bricks to Professor Philbert, throw him in the middle of the fucking Atlantic, and see if he still makes the idiotic statement that the water on the basketball is a representation of the seas of Earth.
Well,
your tie is bloody rubbish. You want to get one of these more intellectual things. Get yourself some glasses. Maybe your brainwashing tactics will work a wee bit better.
You know what? Water is not flat.
Water finds its level. Once water accumulates into a body, it forms a free surface. The free surface of the body of water is its lowest potential energetic state, which is a flat line. As I said before, there may be motion by various means or reasons, but the standing body of water as a whole is level. This is a known fact. This is why we apply it in daily life. If you wanted to level anything, you could dig a trench, fill it with water, and you would know whether you had dug your trench level and straight. Because if the water flows away, you would know you've got a problem. I don't know what your big smug face is all about, because you're a wee bit retarded. And you should be struck off as a professor and an educator of impressionable minds.
Okay, let's have a look. Why does water stay with the ball? Let's have a look at this tube. Tube over here.
That's not a tube.
That's a long distance.
That's a drawing on a whiteboard.
Very long distance, this tube here.
Stop doing that.
We're going to see if the water's going to be level. Because people often use water in tubes to get their levels.
Yes, that's right, Professor. That means that if I wanted to build something level, and again, level in real world applications is no deviation from my starting point to my end point. So no matter the distance, I can use water. I can put it in a tube. I can hold one end up, mark my height, take the other end as long as there's no air bubbles in the pipe, and I can take it as far as I like. And the other end, when I hold it up, is going to show me my level so that I can accurately put things at the same height as each other. That's what happens in the real world of practicality, real world application of everyday living. I think you should go and have a wee word with the rest of the world, the actual world who take part in practicality. They will put you right. I dread to think the state of your home if you're the one that's putting pictures up, or shelves, or constructing anything. It would be an absolute disaster zone.
And water works perfectly for that. It's very, very nice. It's been used for a long time. The Romans did it. Well, let's have a look how come. But all the water is heading, or every molecule of water is heading towards Earth's centre of mass.
Is it? Where did you get that piece of information from? How did you ascertain that nugget of wisdom, Professor? Instead of just asserting stuff, have you got anything practical? Any practical references? Highly doubt it.
Now, wherever you're standing, it's the distance from the centre of mass to the top of the water is the same. That's why it's level. So as you can see from here...
No, Professor. No. What you're doing is you're equating your mathematical descriptions of level to real world practical applications of level. And as I've described many times for you, then stop being a lazy bugger. Go into the real world and actually take note of these things. It's been used every single day. Level in the real world is defined by water. Because water, when it's at rest, the surface has no deviation in elevation from the starting point to the end point. So look, when you draw it, it's like a straight line. Now you're coming along with your sophistry, your mathematical jargon, and trying to redefine a real world observed phenomena, and trying to redefine it by use of your man-made abstract crap. So now you're trying to assert that level means equal in distance from the centre of a circle on a whiteboard to the outer circumference. So from there and there, it's the same distance from there to there as it is from there to there. So this curved line is level. What a complete and utter creepy moron you are. Stop telling children lies. At least be intellectually honest and express to them that there's two definitions of level. You prefer the sophistry version, where you can redefine it any way you bloody well like, so that you can come up with abstract nonsense like curved oceans. There's a huge difference between this descriptor and the real world one that defines what level actually is in terms of real world phenomena. So, Professor, I think you better wind your neck in and stop telling bloody lies. Because as I say, good guys like myself and my brother, 00 Scientist, and the other ruffian who swears a lot, they're not going to let you away with it, I'm afraid. So you're just going to end up looking like a criminal. A devious little liar.
This distance over here, x, is the same over here, it's the same over here, it's the same over here, and it's the same over here. Okay? Even though that is level to the observer. That looks like it's level, it's the same distance.
Right, Professor. Right. Got it.
If you have a look across here, the Earth is curved.
It looks squiggly to me now.
Water is not bloody flat.
Bloody.
Do you get it now?
Edgy. Very edgy.
Thank you.
Bloody. It's not bloody flat. Very edgy. It's Professor Phil Bellend. So, what have we learned about Professor Phil Bellend? Professor Phil Bellend is a bloody liar. It's very obvious. It's very clear to see. So, where are we now? Yes, he is indeed Steve HV, 4.5 gold stars for you, sir. He is a logically fallacious sophist. Well observed. So what people need to understand is this sophistry and how they try and redefine natural phenomena into mathematical abstract concept. Well, they decide the geometry and then they assert what is what. So now level is not like a straight line where level, as we all know and understand, level, it's now a curved line where there's a deviation in elevation. And that is the problem with morons like Professor Phil, who cannot distinguish between the natural sciences and the formal sciences. The formal sciences, like mathematics, are language-based, man-made, abstract, where they can make any old rubbish up and assert it to your children, thereby giving them a false conception of the world they live in, which is to their detriment. Do you want your children running around with falsities? I certainly don't. Neither should you. People like that need to be struck off. You have to remove your children from the attention of morons and predators like Phil Bellend. It's no bloody funny. We will be coming back to the whiteboard very shortly. Give a wee brief look at magnetism. Again, people have seen this. It's in the same train of thought of the moon pulling the oceans. Woo! Guys like Professor Phil and the likes love their magic. I think they're part of a secret magic cult. So anywho, I need a wee rearrangement here. No, in fact, I don't need the table. We can just do it here. That's perfect. So children, now we move on to magnetism, gravity, and the pseudoscientific jargon that people try and come out with. Who's this Dell character, Helen DeGeneres? You talking about the alter ego? I am Professor Level. I'll have you know. If you'd only ingested red, I would think seriously about bringing children to this reality. We have so many mantras. Life's a gift. Life is wonderful. Life is precious. We must strive and continue to keep the species alive. I continually ask the questions, where is anybody getting that? Why? What is your reasoning? Why are you saying such nonsense? Have you not observed this reality and what it has to offer? I hardly think it's precious and beautiful. I think you better take a better look. We'll get to that when we talk about my God. Sorry, Gleam. Sorry if I broke character. We'll get to the God part, Hazmat. Children should be seen and not bloody well heard, okay? You speak when spoken to, Hazmat. When I decide, that's when we'll talk about the topic. No sooner, no later, okay? I'm in control of this class. So anyhow, come back to the whiteboard. Magnetism. Magnetism. Gravity. So let's just see here. Here we have an object. Here we have a magnet. Oh, look at that. What happened there? Can we all see? Oh, look at that. Magic. Look at that. It's amazing. Ooh. So let's try and understand. Let's try and understand. So, as observed before, we had discussions about the notion of pull being some sort of force factor that creates what we know as motion. Now, as I have demonstrated over and over again, there is no such thing in regards to motion of a force known as pull. Pull simply means a description of direction. So if I wanted to bring this object to this object, like that, you would say, oh, I pulled it towards me. And if I take it away, you would say, I pushed it. But in both cases, we have to have a variance in pressure or applied pressure to bring an object here, and we have to bring the object here. So you can see where the pressure is being applied. Now, when we talk of magnetism, and some people and their fantastical ideas of magnetism, let's explore some of the nonsense that they imagine is going on. Magnet. Metal. Metal comes towards magnet. They will say it was attracted to the other object. The magnet pulled the object towards it. So just like we discussed with the moon and the oceans nonsense, how do these people imagine what's going on? As we know in mechanics, every aspect of reality, you must have a component that joins two parts. There has to be a factor that creates the motion, which is usually something touching something else. In the case of magnetism, we do not see anything touching anything else. So we're exploring the fantasy realms of nincompoops to see the reasoning processes. So, some people fantasize that this here, the magnet, brings this one to it by attractive or pulling forces. So again, we have the same problem. Is this casting out imaginary lines that latch on and grab on to the object and then wind it back in this direction so that the object comes towards it? Does this cast out a pushing rod that comes round the back and applies a pressure here and pushes it towards it? Or do they imagine that this one fires out imaginary balls like that, like a gun, that hit this one and by magic this one goes boom, like that? I think that's what some people imagine is going on. What else could we explore? Could it be that this magnet somehow affects this, we'll call this ether, and that somehow the structure of this thing here causes some sort of flow, like a directional flow? So that we could say this is the north pole of the magnet, if you like, and this is the south pole of the magnet. Now, it doesn't matter, just for talking's sake here. This causes a flow of some substance that both objects are within a medium. We may not know the medium, but we can postulate that we can call it ether or something. And that this somehow creates an effect whereby the medium wants to rush in here. Like this. And depending on the structure or what's made this thing is made of, it gets caught in this flow. So just like in the laws of motion, like we can observe with water, like a turbine engine in water or whatever, you know, it causes this flow where the flow carries the object into this space. That could be a possibility. That could work. Because that could be extrapolated from some other aspect of reality, just like a body of water or a body of air. Like we know how when you create a lower pressure in air, the rest of the atmosphere will rush in to that region, you know, like your vacuum cleaner. When you create a lower pressure region, the rest of the high pressure rushes in to fill that void, because in nature, in reality, we can't have a place of no thing. Voids, vacuums, they do not exist in the natural world. I don't know why we're bloody well discussing them. So, what are we looking at here? What do the imagines going on? Casting out rods, invisible, lines, latching on, winding in, invisible rod, going round the back, applying a pressure, pushing it in. Or it warps the medium, this one, and creates a flow of the medium in an inwards direction to one of the poles. And if it gets caught in there because it's made of a particular substance, it is carried along with the flow until it meets the resistance of the other object and it can go no further. Just a thought. Just kind of rational thinking. Yeah? Because if we don't apply rational thinking and some sort of deductive reasoning from what we can test and observe and apply in every other aspect of our lives, we start to come up with magic. Like, this one can affect this one with nothing going on in between. Just reasons. Mathematical reasons. Do you understand? It's funny when we have two magnets and we find the opposing pole and you try and push it together, you can feel a resistance, like there's a compression here in this region here. And it's like a springy compression zone. And it reminds me of, I don't know, when you were a child, do you remember in the swimming baths when you would go to the wall, there would be a little hole in the wall where the jet would be forcing water outwards, and you put your hand up to it and you get that springy resistive feeling. It's very, very similar to that. And you can almost feel the direction of the flow. If you mess with it, you can feel it going in there, but here there's like a wall that won't allow it to go any further and it wants to go in here. So it's almost like an arc. You can see the flow here, I can feel it. I can feel the flow. And here is obviously where the inward flow would be. And now that it's coming into contact with it, there's a resistance. It can go no further. But here, I can feel the compression. Here, I can feel the compression. Oh, and there's a spot in the middle where there's none. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. It has to be explored further. What I'm sick of is morons professing to know exactly what's going on and imagining magic. Oh, it's attracting it. That one can bring that one towards it with nothing in between going on. It just does it. It's just magic. Do you get me? Do you get me? Are you understanding, children? They make a vacuum between them as they are approaching each other. Well, you could say something like that, but we don't observe vacuums. No things. There is no place of no thing. That's not to say maybe there is something like that going on. But here we can feel, we can see there's a resistive aspect. It's like a springy compression zone. And then, boom, it spins and it finds the point of entry. What's this about particles, Gleam? What's going on? I'll need to check that out, Gleam. Again, you know, you can send me stuff in regards to this topic of discussion. I like to pursue my own reasoning to see if I can break it before I go to others, so that that does not sway my exploration, if you like. Everybody should be playing, as I have said so many times and pointed to you, motion, as far as we understand it, has to have a variance in pressure. Something applying a pressure to something else to achieve motion. We can have an attachment between this and this. Okay, so it's attached here, it's attached here. In order to move this, we still need an applied pressure. This now becomes an extension of this, so the applied pressure moving this moves this. So we can have connection rods between things. That's how machines work. Any machine has one component connected to another component, and it is a complete cycle. If you remove any aspect of the machine fails to work. I'll check that out, Gleam. Thank you very much. But for me, there has to be something like that. So say we can understand other analogue aspects, like we can observe how the behaviour of a turbine in water is very similar to a north and south pole of a magnet, where we have a flow inwards and a flow outwards. But in magnetism, it's like a cycle. So is it the structure? It's warping this space between us that causes some sort of flow in an inwards direction, and stuff that is made of a particular makeup is caught in the flow. Just like observing a flowing river and a log floating on the top being pushed in the direction of the flow of the river. So, that's enough of that. Pull rubbish. There is no force as pull. So when we talk about gravity, Earth, Moon affects Earth. How? Gravity. What's gravity? It's something that's in the middle of this that pulls stuff towards it in any given direction. Well, how's it achieving that? Again, as we've highlighted, it would need to be casting out rods or levers of some kind. Oh, you've got to say it's a warping and bending of space-time. So, it's just as I've been stating, it's warping some other medium. The medium is then flowing inwards to a central point and going nowhere, apparently. And stuff that's getting caught in that flow is being pushed towards the centre of a sphere Earth. Now at the same time we've got this bugger here that's got the very same thing a pulling nonsense going on in every direction. But this can somehow affect the stuff on this one. How? Magic. Is its warping of the medium more intense than this one's warping of the medium? Well, no, because this is smaller than this one, apparently. So if you're looking at it in terms of water, take a big rock and a small rock. The big rock will displace more of the medium than the small rock will. So how then is this wee one affecting the bigger one? Magic. Magical reasons. Invisible rods attaching onto water molecules and then winding them back in so that this now has a big high hump of water on it going towards the moon. And it doesn't matter if the moon's round here, it still manages to make it hump up like this here when it's at the opposite side. It's fucking astounding. Wonderful, magical concepts. Blows my mind. Blows my tiny mind. It's no bloody wonder I smoke so much. Do you really want to live to 85? Living amongst retarded peoples who believe in magical drivel? I don't think they thought about it too well. I think it's just lies on top of lies on top of lies. And it's just got that bloody ridiculous and complicated that people just give up when it's very simple. It's very, very simple. Motion requires a mechanism. That mechanism, as we understand it, is a variance of pressure. That's what creates motion. But when you're trying to convince people that they live on an absurdity, you have to come up with all sorts of ad hoc drivel, which is exactly what we have today, as I've just demonstrated. If you are still believing in that utter waffle at this point, then I have to say there is no hope for you. You are lost and bewildered and suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. And a touch of the Dunning-Krugers. So, now is your time, children, professors, anybody. Please let me know what you think of the lesson, the discussion. Have you got anything to add? Have you got any questions? We'll have a 5-minute recess before we continue the class, and you can let me know. Objections, questions, whatever. Just in the interest of fairness. Hello, Professor Vortex Puppy. How are you? It is indeed question time, Boris Chops. Space-time. We've got Jimbo Con talking about an imaginary concept. Space-time. It's not a thing. Has no dimensions to it. What are you talking about? No, lies about where we live is not cool, indeed pragmatic. 4 gold stars for you. Ball for life. We are in the dark ages, sir. We have a hierarchical system that brainwashes children, robs them of their individuality, their discernment. And tech tells them a load of rubbish about their existence. We are in the Dark Ages in regards to psychology, human progression. But because you've got a smartphone with a dumb user, you think that's progress. That is the Dark Ages. Have we got any objections? I'm not interested in childish drivel. Grow up. Have you got anything you would like to add? They say that stuff all the time. Flat earthers are taking us back to the Stone Ages. You've got a system of fucking regurgitate, repeat on command. That is the Stone Ages. That's retarded. It's a big cult. It's holding us all back. Everybody is deluded into believing in idiotic ideas and concepts like money, self-gratification, chasing fantasies. Would anybody like to join me in this short recess to add or question any aspect of what has been offered so far in the class? In the interest of fairness, I shall create a wee window of opportunity and you can come and let me know. How fucking handsome and smart you look. Looking brilliant. Looking intellectual as fuck. There we go, class. Now you can come and question the professor. Well, I think that ether is a very interesting concept, something that we could follow a look at. I'm not interested in belligerent children screaming from the back of the classroom when you do not have the cojones to come to the front of the classroom and express what you have to say in front of the whole class. You're not very bright, you're not very clever, and a small minority think you're good. They're just as thick as you are. The rest of the children are here to learn. I'm going to get to the iron filings, Emerald Rider. Again, to highlight the possibility of some sort of flow inwards and outwards when we're talking about magnets. Because, as I say so many times, we have to be looking in that direction. We can't just induce magic reasons. That allows morons like Phil Bell and his cojones to wander off into gobbledygook land and spew their nonsense onto impressionable children. PhD guy, you can come in, son. The class floor is open. Where are you? ER Jambo, you're too late with that part. I have already spoken about how my testicles are attracted to each other. Sometimes. Sometimes one hangs lower than the other. So, It's no uniform attraction. Sometimes it's different, it's varying. Of course, we always have belligerent children who spew nonsense and then are scared to come in. Maybe it's the whiteboard. Maybe they are afraid of the power of the whiteboard. I would be. Here's for the lulz. PhD guy has nothing to offer. PhD guy, you are ejected from the class. Do not want disruptive children. If you have something constructive to say, then by all means. You have a couple of minutes.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Who is this?
It's Flat Earth Data. How are you, bro?
Yes, I am absolutely brilliant.
Wonderful. I just wanted to share some information to your audience to get this observer standing on the shore perspective.
Are you here to contribute to the class, or are you taking it on a tangent?
Actually, you know what, Del? I just dropped in. I just joined like 2 minutes ago. I said, hey, man, can I present something? I have no idea your subject content. I apologize. I just thought it would be...
How long is it going to take?
Less than 5 minutes.
Go for it.
All right. Let me just do this here. Okay. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to have to. I gotta go back because Safari won't let me share my screen. I gotta go to Google.
No, there's no screen sharing. It's an open invitation, and we would get porn bombers.
Yeah, I don't want to do that to you, Del. I'm not interested in that shit.
Well,
but needless to say, are you able to do something for me then? With okay, well, shit. Because I just wanted to show your audience a quick way of looking at.
Explain to me what it is first.
Okay, so our eyeball has a constant, and anybody can take 1.22, times it by the square root of the observer's height, and you'll get the apparent distance to the horizon. Okay, this 1.22 is a constant based on the shape of our aperture and the lens size of our eye. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to show an observer standing on the shore and create a radius ring, showing that an observer standing on the shore, looking off, will see a horizon about 3 miles. And this has everything to do with that 1.22, okay? Which that 1.22 will be found in the Rayleigh criterion as well. But it's also a visual constant. So right now, anybody listening, take 1.22, times it by the square root of the observer's height, and you'll get the distance to the horizon, okay? This works even if you're 200 miles in the air. 200 miles times square root, 1.22 times the square root of 200 miles, and you'll get a distance of 436 miles to the horizon. So, or something like that. I have to do the math. But basically what I wanted to put in perspective is if you draw that circular ring around the observer, 3 miles, and then you extend another ring at 8 miles, the claim is that a boat will pass the 3 mile of the observer's horizon line. It will go into the 4, 5, 6 mile and then drop about 20 feet between that 3 mile and that 8 mile mark.
Yep.
Now, I want them to look at a zenith position of that. Look above and to see you're actually claiming the physical Earth is curving at such short distances a great deal amount, right? Without considering anything else. Now, a lot of these globers don't understand that we have what's called the junction or convergence of the eye. And one way you can confirm that is look down a hallway. You'll see the floor ramp up. You'll see the ceiling come down. Yeah. You know what the floor ramping up is called? And I have to thank Gleam for this. It's called egocentric distance. And there's actually been studies on how our eye ramps the floor up into the center position. Now, everybody knows the human eye has a 60-degree view, and it's divided in two. You have 30 degree above the horizon line and 30 degree below the horizon line. This apparent junction is at 3 miles, and we know damn well the sky and the ground do not connect at 3 miles. Yeah. So why is this even continue? Without curvature, you have nothing when it comes to shadows, nothing.
I'm about to show by way of whiteboard the absurdity of ships going over curves and how a curved ground beneath your feet would actually be. So,
well, one thing I could suggest you try to doing is take a flat map and do a radius circle 3 miles out from the observer, and you'll see when you actually draw farther out, higher up, how big the actual Earth is, and see how little of that radius they're claiming curvature on. It's absolutely crazy. So I don't know if you're understanding what I'm translating here. In other words, go into like a map program, create the radius at 3 miles, create the radius at 8 miles, and then zoom the fuck out, and you will see it's impossible to have curvature at such short distances over a large flat plane. On top of that, it also proves that our circle vision operates this way on a flat plane. In other words, the higher you go, the farther you can see your horizon, which works on a flat plane.
Yeah.
And you can take your camera, a small aperture camera, on the ground, and you will notice you will get a horizon line. You will get an artificial horizon line based on the angle of light.
But it's different for everybody as well, though. You know, no every eye is the same, and people's heights are different. You know,
True.
All these things are just, you know.
But there is a constant, Del. There is that constant. That 1.22 is a constant, and that's the derivative of the shape and the aperture size of our eye.
Yeah.
Because you can take that at any time and times that by the square root of the observer's height, and you will get the apparent horizon line, which is phenomenally. And what blows my mind is the derivative of that 1.22. My theory is that everything is derived from a flat plane circle, and they're using our vision to hijack it into spherical mathematics.
Of course they have. That's what it's based on. We've been pointing that out for years.
I'll give you an example. You can take you can have a flat circle and still have a radius of 3,959 miles. On a flat disk, you can have a radius of 3,959 miles, right? On a flat disk you can have. Well, if you take that flat disk, you times it by 2, you get the radius of that flat disk. Or, sorry, the diameter of that flat disk, pardon me. So take the radius times it by 2, you get the diameter. This has nothing to do with a sphere. This is still a flat circle, right? Do you understand what I'm saying, Del? You take the radius of Earth, which is a flat circle still, times it by 2, you get the diameter of a flat circle. Well, if you take that diameter, which ends up to be 7,918 miles, you times that by 5,280 feet, you get 41,700,040 feet or something like that. If you take that mathematics, so take the 41 million and divide it by 5,280 square feet again, square root that, you'll get a constant of 1.22. So I find it really fucking amazing that the flat circle mathematics have been hijacked, and our perspective of that convergence point, that spherical convergence points we have, has been hijacked from it. Because at no point do you need to have a sphere for that 1.22 to work. You just need to have a radius circle and a diameter. That's it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's spherical.
That's right.
So,
Cool.
but I wanted to show that. I'm not a porn bobber. I appreciate your show, and hopefully this leads people to investigate that 1.22 constant that we have for visual.
No worries. Cheers for that. As I say, my mind's somewhere else just now, but I'll take in what you're saying. It's pretty similar to what we've already highlighted before, I'm pretty sure, but
that constant, nobody's talking about that constant much, right? That 1.22. I mean, it's discussed in the Rayleigh criteria as far as, we can discern between one object and two, but the fact is it's a constant, and pretty much anybody could use it. So I find that quite fascinating, that the constant is a derivative from the diameter of this 24,901 mile circumference.
Yeah. Cool. Cheers for that, mate. As I say, my mind's somewhere else just now, so I'm going to continue with that, but we'll be coming back to what you've been talking about there. I'm just going to show it in a simpler form as well. So, a minute. Professor needs tea. So I keep things simple. The absurdity of the globe. The way we see, as the man was talking about, you've got a person. That's a person, by the way. Wee stick man with an eyeball. Standing on a floor, on a surface. This surface appears to rise up like this. The sky appears to come down like this, where they appear to meet at the centre of the field of vision. Okay, so we all know this. The absurdity of the globe, and when you ask them, why is the floor ramping up while my head is level or my optical device is perfectly level to the earth beneath it? Why then does it appear that the floor rises up and the sky comes down? Now, the absurdity of the globe is that you've got a surface like this with another wee man standing on it, looking straight out. The geometry of a ball does not allow for this to be happening, but they want to just ignore it. They always want to tell you you're looking down the way like this, but you're not. You're looking straight out and the floor still appears to rise up into the centre of your field of view. So they've got a real problem because the geometry of a sphere, regardless of how big it is, does not allow for the floor to be coming up this way. Ever. Right? It's very, very simple. What they're going to tell you is you've got a horizon here, and you're the observer looking at the horizon, your head's perfectly level. You know that it's perfectly level because, for talking's sake, this line is in the centre, it intersects the centre of your field of view. Now, any optical device that you're using, will show you if your optical device is perfectly levelled, looking at the sea, where you can have a clear horizon. If your horizon is in the top portion of the screen, of your field of view up here, it means you are above looking downwards at the frame of reference, so the horizon moves to the top. If you are looking up at the sky, the horizon will appear in the bottom half of your field of vision. Now, again, you look through a square screen, you see things on a square screen, but your field of vision is not a square. Your field of vision is more that shape, like an oblate spheroid in 3 dimensions, is how your field of vision works. The absurdity of the globe is that you're standing here, looking at your horizon, this floor is ramping up in front of you to come to the level of your eye, and then they'll say, oh look, there's the mast of a wee ship, and the ship's below the curve. So we've got an issue here. If we look at that side on, wee man's eye, the floor's coming up like this, and then dropping down like that. That's what these morons think's happening. That's honest, and they think that the boat's here. Oh, there's a wee boat. And you can just see this amount here. Right? That's what they think's happening. It's totally absurd nonsense. Now, in reality, if you were the observer here, and you had your horizon, you're perfectly level looking at your horizon, and you're saying, oh, there's a wee boat there and it's disappeared beyond the curve of the Earth. The Earth's ramping up and then falling away there. What should happen is this. We should be able to place an observer here. Equilateral triangle. Okay? So 60 degrees from this person and 60 degrees from the object that you're suggesting is going over the curve of the Earth. In that scenario, you want my cup, boy? You dressed up already?
No.
You're nearly as smart as me. So in that scenario, we're now at the other observer, at his point, where he's looking. He can now see the first guy looking at the boat. What he should be able to see is this, as the boat goes beneath the curve. That's what he should be able to see. You should be able to see the curve from your left to your right. So we can test that. We can identify, as you can here in the west coast of Scotland. We can have Ailsa Rock here. We can have, I think, the Isle of Bute here. We can have Stranraer here. Okay? There's a distance of 30 miles between point 1 and point 2. What we can then achieve is we can see that if we hold up a straight edge so that we can get this or this in our field of view, you will find that it's a perfectly horizontal straight line. There is no deviation in elevation from this point to this point. On the globular Earth, however, over 30 miles and 300 feet, what we should see happening is a gradual descent from this point to this point, because it must. It's a sphere, apparently. So it has to deviate in its elevation from there to fucking there. That's not what you see in reality. That's not what happens either.
Right, my man.
How's it going, Gav? How you doing?
Ah, sound. Oh, you're looking awful much more believable with that bow tie and the
Fucking
specs.
right.
You know?
Fucking
You're
right.
a real important person now.
Aye, fucking professor extraordinaire. Yeah. I'll even look at you through the top of my fucking glasses.
Oh, you need to give me that intimidating, condescending stare.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Right.
Scare the life out of children, that would.
Got it going on, yeah.
But it just shows you, you know. I mean, I know you're taking the piss, and I always say ridicule is a great weapon, right? But you know that is the effect that they have on children and the gullible, right? You know, a bit of special attire, right?
Yep.
A certain demeanour and attitude and how should I say, presence that they try and invoke to look superior.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it takes to sell somebody bullshit,
That's
right?
it.
And if you're weak and gullible, then you just gulp it down.
That's it. You can also use a whiteboard and misrepresent everything. And just assert, you know, whatever you like. Define, you know, level and, you know, all sorts of fucking nonsense.
And one of the things there is, you know, weak and gullible is the natural status of a child, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're, you know, by definition, they're not growing up, they're not strong, they're not in their mind or in their body, they're, you know, if you like, weak in a certain extent.
They're
And
gullible.
gullible because they want to believe, they want
Exactly.
the truth, right? They expect the truth from adults, right?
It's not a flaw. It's only a flaw in this.
No, it's not a flaw.
It's only a flaw in this circumstance that we find ourselves in with fucking liars and bullshitters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, that's kind of leads me into the point that I was going to talk about a bit later about the possibility of an enemy, you know, and where this actually comes from, you know, because some of us just have that kind of constitution of, willingness to accept, trust and whatever else, But we seem to have this oppressive, lying, manipulative system now that's being perpetrated and pushed by certain factions. So, we have to look at that as some sort of enemy, as far as I'm concerned,
I agree with you totally on that. Absolutely. I think the cosmological worldview, this push, the nihilism, and all those things makes people, behave that way. It's not their natural situation, Dale. It's not our natural equilibrium.
Yeah, exactly.
If you like, I do believe that, people come wanting to speak the truth, expecting to hear the truth, expecting to be, have some kind of moral fiber.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that is part of a constitution in a way, but it's the system that, manipulates people into doing otherwise, or acting otherwise.
Yeah, we're moulded by circumstance, so if the circumstances are a particular way, then what result do you think you're going to get, So
absolutely. And I just managed to catch a bit, and then I got distracted, unfortunately. But I think you were talking, about flat and level, and the sophistry of that goes on between those two different things. And that's something they play on very highly with the words. Flat. I mean, I just want to read out a definition here. So flat is a measure of the surface variation over the entire length of an object. Right, and I just want to point out, every time you hear the word measure, then you're talking mathematics, whereas level, the difference in elevation of a fluid from one end to another, or any point to another point, is something based on a physical substance. It's not a mathematical thing, whereas flat is a mathematical sophistry at the end of the day, using measure theory. And, I've got an issue, I've said this a lot of times, I've got no issue with the words practical, demonstrable, testable, substantial, corporeal, real stuff. But I do have an issue with the two words observable and measurable. One, because we know observations is in the visible world, and that's different from the physical world. I don't know how many times we've talked about that, but everybody should be relevant, should understand it by now. And measurable is, every time you hear that word, they're talking about mathematics. On measure theory. And measure theory, just so that people maybe heard this too, let me just quote, in mathematical analysis, so mathematical analysis is the calculus, right? Limits, differentiation, integration, the stuff that Newton basically and Leibniz invented. In mathematical analysis, a measure on a set is algebraic, right? So they're talking about then abstract generalizations in algebra, x's and y's, is a systematic way to assign a number to each suitable set, intuitively interpreted as its size, right? So what I'm trying to say there is that it's a generalization of real life things like volume and surface and area in a mathematical abstract language, what we say all the time, a formal man-made language according to some cunt's definition of and his axioms and his assumptions, and they're playing on that. So, careful with the words measurable and observable is all I can say. And don't let them use those sophistry, right, in redefining those terms. I mean, I know I'm not saying anything new, I'm repeating it for anybody listening, basically.
Exactly, so it's always the practical reference is first and foremost, the language is secondary to that. And if you lend your attention to the language, which is secondary, you can become confused, that's where the sophistry can creep in, because the practical reference is always going to be first and foremost. It defines everything, just as I was pointing earlier. Professor Phil Bellend is trying to, again, with these sophists, trying to redefine level to mean, the distance from the centre point of a circle to the circumference. It's like that kind of stuff, That's where...
A curved surface with no curve. Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So. And I think I heard somebody mentioning this visible, the distance to the apparent horizon and the number 1.22. Again, I'd be very careful with things like that, because the number 1.22 is based on using standard miles, i.e. land miles. And if you were to, for example, use kilometers as your unit, you would have a different number. So there's nothing magic about the 1.22. Right? Not that people have any confusion about that, because that number will change depending on the units you use, right? Where I think, and what we pointed out before, is the tie-in to nautical miles. And nautical miles for me is the thing that people should be looking at. That's a true measure because it's based again on the properties and behaviours of water. We're talking about travelling across level standing bodies of water that gives me, nautical miles.
Yeah.
And that's where they've used the sophistry of pretending it's a ball, redefining the level, the curve, and the ratio 3438 is what they define to be the radius of the Earth in nautical miles. And that's the ratio that ties in also to your visual acuity. We had a session on that, where we were talking about the eye chart and stuff like that. I don't know if you remember.
Right.
So I think people need to look closer and don't hang on a 1.22 that's based on some standards and measures, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I spoke to Andrew. There's loads of people that Andrew have made wee cut up aspects of certain bits. So I think, for the same for yourself, what we should do is we should cut up these wee sections again and just upload them as individual videos. And I'll probably be doing that over the next few weeks. So, you can direct me to these bits. And we'll just chop them up and we'll put them up there as bit-sized chunks so that people can digest
that would be great, yeah. Because I know they can get buried in these hangouts and I just don't have the time for that stuff at the moment, Chief. So, but yeah, if somebody could help, that would be great. I'd certainly assist in any way to cut out or identify relevant bits,
Aye, exactly. So aye, good stuff. So
but just to come back to the taking the piss, I know there's people always come back to the pouring water on a ball.
Yeah.
Let's call it the video that made you famous, Dale, or whatever you want to call it. But there's still people out there trying to misinterpret what you were doing there, right? And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most rational and sane things I've ever seen, Dale, because what you were trying to do was embarrass people into their ignorance, right, of what it is they're not thinking about, right? And that video was just, super on point, and again, you were using parody and comedy to get the point across, and it's still one of the most effective and powerful ways. So good on Professor Level is what I'm saying. I can see you're getting ready to relax for the evening. Get back to work, you bastard.
But even professors need to chill out,
Yeah.
Aye, so
I just want to point that out because there's lots of people still, are you so stupid you believe that man who pours water in a ball thinks he's proven something,
Yeah.
And it's pointing out the absurdity. It's the embarrassment that people should feel that they actually believe that it would stick.
Exactly. Not just that it would stick, that it would display the topography of what's underneath on the surface.
I know. It's just so. But and anybody who hasn't got that yet is just beyond hope, or other at it, right? We know there's so many of them just at it, trying to disparage people, but.
As I say, they're nonsense there, so obviously they think it's going to define me or affect me or whatever, but it just doesn't. Practicality, realism, they're not going to combat that. They've only got a certain amount of tools that they can use to try that, and none of it works. So.
They've given all up on that deal, as soon as anything to do with you is just a tax on the man now, because they know they've got no other options, so. Well, again, they certainly can't come with rational reason, So.
Well, again, we've been talking about various aspects and having a think about, some of these things, and you're offering the floor to them. Come in then, but it's never there, so.
They just run away and hide.
Hit piece videos it is.
Sorry?
You'd hit piece videos it is then,
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Even any invitation that you extend in a friendly and cordial fashion is just met usually with people running away like a big girl's blouse,
Exactly.
It's pathetic,
So. Right, so that was pretty much it in the professor aspects. I'm just going to probably engage in some philosophical discussions, gods and all this stuff, So,
aye.
I'm
open for any topic, my man. You know me.
It's, I can't even remember exactly what it was I was going to point out, but it's just some of these concepts of creation, creators, and what people think's going on, or what that would possibly mean. That never sits right with me. We've spoken about this so many times. And if you're looking for a characteristic type of God with human attributes, then what would you be looking for? you certainly wouldn't be looking to worship, oppression, judgment, any of these things. We spoke about this so many times. For me, I would be looking at, if I was going that road, I'd be looking at something that's logical, that's reasonable, that wants equals, that's its goal, that's what it would be setting out to achieve, rather than this subservient, testing and reward and demerit type system that people are stuck in,
meritocracy, you're supposed to, whatever, get your wee gold stars on there so that you can have, it just doesn't jive with me either, Dale,
No.
And I think you've said this often enough, I want to speak to the big man if he's up there. He's got a lot of fucking answers to give,
Exactly.
So if there is anything up there, or down there, or sideways, or whatever the fuck,
Aye.
But
no, there you go.
No, I was just going, we've said this before, and as far as I'm concerned, there's intelligent design to be seen everywhere. I just can't go back to the cosmological accident, random bullshit, big bangs from nothings. I mean, none of that makes any logical sense whatsoever.
No.
And just looking around, you can see intelligence in what's been done. But again, you do have to question, well, in some respects, a lot of it seems strange, at least, why you would make such decisions, as you say, but and then when religion tries to spin it, and as you say, usually they just want a pound, they want to keep you in fear,
exactly.
They want you to pay money for you. Do you know what I mean? It's just another game and power and control,
and all
I shy away from that completely.
And all the religious ideas that stem from that as well, control, oppression, yada yada. I mean, for me, I'd like people to start exploring other possibilities of our history being, something, far removed from what people are imagining right now, and the possibility of us having an enemy or there being, opposing factions that, that there's all sorts of possibilities for how we could have ended up in the situation we're in. But the majority of these ideologies, for me, stem from the situation of ignorance, bewilderment that the majority find themselves in right now, and they come up with these concepts of imaginary beings and gods and whatnot,
the fact that they're not trained to critically think for themselves means that they're, whatever thoughts they have or we have, in some kind of containment as well, a mental containment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're not, used to exploring yourself and letting, how should I say, pushing the boundaries out. You're just kind of stuck in repeating and parroting, other ideas, because most religions are similar, right?
Yeah.
I've yet to see one that stands out,
Yeah.
They've all got the same promise of it's all going to be better when you snuff it,
but
and you have to do certain things now, right? Yeah. Dictated to you to get there,
But the underlying thread of all these religions for me is the bit that I think a lot of people overlook. It places us in a place of limitation, that we're all supposed to be here. This is the way it was supposed to be, and everybody seems to be blinded by that. Again, what the possibility is that no, that's not the case. I speak about this in regards to the races of people. What if these people are from another area? There is other areas out there. There's something bigger going on that we're just not in tune with yet, that we've forgot about, because of the situation we find ourselves in. All these religions are putting us in a place of, we're supposed to be here, we're in a contained, set area, and we have to figure that out from that starting, postulation. Whereas I don't see it like that, because a lot of stuff doesn't make sense to me,
Oh, as you say, I think you overlook it immediately, right? It's such a disempowering situation, and people just tend to skip over it and not question that first principle or that first assumption, right? Or that first, whatever it is they think the foundation that they're standing on, but it's quicksand. It's absolutely, there's nothing there. It's fucking shaky as fuck, any of those religions, what they tell you to begin with. So all the way from their whatever, beginnings and Old Testaments or whatever. I don't want to hack on any one particular religion. As far as I'm concerned, organised religion's always bad.
Exactly. And it's the absurdity for me is, postulating that we're part of something eternal and infinite, and that, human experience is somehow adding or taking something away from that, which would then again denote that it's something finite, which doesn't work philosophically. You can't postulate that and then have some experience here that somehow transcends and adds or takes something away from that. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
It's it's almost like aspects of it are kind of determined, but we have, like, I talk about it with music. When I make a new tune up, and I spoke about this a few weeks ago. Am I actually making something new up, or am I just making a discovery of a sequence of possibility that already existed? Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah.
So, but that's it for me when I look at it and I go, right, well, am I part of something finite, or am I part of something infinite, eternal? If I look at the infinite and eternal, then no, because then I'm saying I'm adding something, I'm making something new. That doesn't compute with me. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean, and you're putting into simple words that I hope everybody can understand what mathematics of analysis does. I mean, that's what they talk about. Like, how do you add 1 to infinity? Is there such a thing as infinity plus 1? How do you take the limit of something approaching 0 and getting infinitely small? So they play with all these concepts and couch them in a mathematical language there, but nobody's, meeting it head on and saying exactly where the problem is with that stuff, I mean, there have been a few people over the years, but they just get largely ignored, in the consensus of academia.
Exactly. But there's so many contradictions, and when you simplify it like that, you can start to see where these postulations fit in, what category they're fitting into, and then you can start to unravel the contradictions in them. Like that. Right. You can't add anything, you can't take anything away. Which for me is why they continually go in these directions of a finite type existence, because they're trying to place everything within a geometry, within a start point and an end point. And the new stuff is coming out of that. It's the same as, like, the information of a human body. The whole notion of a single celled organism becoming more complex. Well, more complexity means new information for me. So where is that coming from? Do you know what I mean? You're having to add something all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas,
no, absolutely.
Whereas, the possibility already exists, and things can be actuated and things can be discovered. It's not that anybody's creating anything new. Say that about, the truth. People say, "Oh, cheers for that. You found the truth," or "Cheers for that truth." I'm like, well, the truth doesn't belong to anybody. If you're searching for something and you're being honest with yourself, then it's a path that's already there. You can only discover it. It's not like somebody makes a discovery and they attribute it to some person. Well, is that right to do that? Because then you're placing somebody in a pedestal that they've somehow created something new. But I'm like, no, they've just made a discovery of something that already existed. So
that's right, or a rediscovery of something that was forgotten.
But then we've got,
that could apply to any invention, if you like. I agree.
But then we've got this, this circumstance that we're in right now, where ownership's had over discovery, and people starting to take ownership of things, which again, puts an imbalance there. There's no equilibrium in that,
No, I agree. I mean, one of the most horrific, or one of the worst examples I find is this, patenting of the genome, of the the big chemical or pharmaceutical companies patenting certain parts of nature, which is absolutely ridiculous, right? Because that surely has to belong to everybody equally, and not be patented by some corporation for its own interests.
And all these things for me point to that thing that I'm talking about, the enemy. And I've spoken about this so many times. It's not a robe. It's not a skin colour or any of that stuff, what they're wearing or what faction they're a part of. It's that mind. It's these attributes that I pinpoint to say, well, that's not right, because just as you say, who's saying they've got the right to any of these things over everybody else? Do you know what I mean?
No.
So there absolutely. Again, I can identify an enemy, if you like, what I see as my ideal, Which is,
I think it's an idealismus. It's a mindset, isn't it? It's a mind virus, whatever, call it what you will, but it's an attitude that's wrong. Yeah. And where it exactly comes from, whether it's part of brainwashing, education, circumstance, environment, But I mean, again, we've talked about this as well. Everybody's equal when you talk about being a natural scientist. Nobody, absolutely nobody, whether he's got a white coat and a bow tie and specs, nobody has the right to be able to say to me, I've got a better handle on objective reality than you, right? Not possible.
That's it.
Because nobody's got extrasensory powers or magic Harry Potter wands or can do pullity and gravity, with his fingers. So,
Exactly.
it's just pish.
Exactly. FPV Angels putting a comment there, the ancients called those lights in the sky gods, although they're creating, they are not the creator. And I've thought about that as well. Again, we can postulate, imaginations about, I looked at these things and I thought, well, maybe they're nodes that dictate, a set frequency or a vibration that dictates a particular form, whether it be, some animal or, the form of a rock or how a grass may grow or whatever. And these things are the nodes that give out that frequency. So everything has its own frequency band, and it's in lattice layers like vertical and horizontals, and that's what's going on. I mean, we can, when there's things that are unknown, that's the problem. We can all enter into mental gymnastics and start postulating all sorts of, possible fantasy. But it's...
Yeah, and the problem just with that is only when you try and take a correlation as being proof of something, right?
Yeah.
And because that's not enough to show a cause and effect, just because something happens after something else, right?
Yeah.
Or something happens before and it happens all the time. And that's where these fallacies come. Not that I'm saying a lot of that research, I've seen a lot of it myself and looked at a lot of what's been done, Dale, about, whether specific wandering stars or the planets, as they're called, actually have some, how should I say, coherent integration with metals or substances or plants or animal life.
Yeah.
But, the problem is when we bring metaphysics into it and just look at correlations and use it as some kind of proof of our theories. Right?
Exactly.
That's where it falls down, as far as I'm concerned.
So. That's it. So we have to be careful, and as said it so many times, it's fine when we're having, imaginary discussions about possibilities, but these ideas can be powerful to people. They can take things out of context. It can send them on a spiral of contemplation that's in no way, shape or form relatable to reality or their experience at all. It's a cul-de-sac of delusion that you can get lost in. So it's...
on the other hand, sometimes, thinking out the box and having weird ideas leads you on a path of discovery of something real and good.
Exactly.
Right? So I'm not knocking it necessarily. No. I think, what we're both trying to say is that you have to discern between the two when you're departing from natural science into something that's man-made in your head.
Yeah.
Right? And those mental objects of thought have got nothing to do with the objective reality which we share, which is where mathematics fucks up, right?
Exactly.
Because these are just mental objects of thought. The fact that people think they believe in live in a mathematical sphere is mind-boggling to me now, Dale. Yeah. And I used to believe it, because I never discerned, I never thought about it critically. But to think that you actually live in an object of thought, because that's all a mathematical sphere is. It's an object of thought. Right?
Yeah.
And people are actually out there thinking they live on this object of thought. And it's so crazy now when you see it for what it is, right?
So I've seen so many times.
You differentiate between the two, discern between the two, right?
Aye. It's a concept, it's not a three-dimensional tangible thing, No,
exactly. And I'm weary of pointing this out, but abstracting the quality, any quality of anything, Dale, has to belong to a body, to a substance, to a thing, to a real world fucking stuff, right?
Yeah.
You can't talk about qualities of things without attaching it to some object, right?
Yeah.
And that object is then the subject of your conversation.
And
that's where rhetoric and all these things start to play a role, where they just abstract those things into generalized theories and talk a lot of fucking horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
People will believe it because they paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect example is going back to it again was the guy at the beginning, the redefinition of level. There's a huge difference between real world phenomena and application of, an understanding of what level means to, the mathematical descriptor.
Yep.
And it's so simple, but again, these people, no matter how many times you request that they display a bit of intellectual honesty and at least highlight there's two different descriptors. One's a real world phenomena, the other one is just a man-made concept.
Yep.
But that's where they
they won't even go there.
No.
They won't even go there. I mean, how often have we repeated here on this channel the difference between these two things, formal sciences and natural science, and you won't see one glober attaching, going to that point and starting from that point and saying, yes, now we're going to go on a man-made formal language description. Because if they do that, they're out in the open, Dale. They're naked, right?
Exactly.
I mean, so, they're always going to avoid going back to those first principles from a starting point of consent amongst human beings, right?
Any avenue that would allow the seeds of doubt to be sown, they avoid it, so they're not going to admit to any of these things, just as you've said,
No, they have to jump straight into some argument or put two models next to each other and tell you to choose, right? Yeah. But no. They won't go back to the start and say, well, hold on, let's look at the assumptions, the principles, the axioms. What is it we're presupposing here to begin with, right? And sometimes it is difficult, because you catch yourself, how should I say, assuming things that you shouldn't be. I mean, in daily life, you'll assume certain things and you'll maybe check yourself afterwards, right, I missed that puddle and I fell in my arse. I shouldn't have assumed that there was no hole there.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, I mean, you catch yourself all the time making those things, and you really need to rein it in when you're talking science.
That's it.
Which they refuse to do, though, because they know they're onto a bummer.
That's it. Aye. Well, as I said, I've said so many times, people like us are not going to let it go. They're just going to continually keep hammering on and pointing it out. They can kick and scream and put up a fight all they like, but that's not going to resolve it.
Laugh in their face still.
Exactly.
That's all they deserve. Ridicule is all they deserve.
Exactly.
From Professor Bellend to the fucking professors at Glasgow University who won't even come out to play. Do you know what I mean? Bunch of scaredy cats.
Exactly, man.
Pathetic, Exactly. And to be honest, Dale, I much prefer the other persona than your professor level, because that is a man with a direct and open, how should I say, attitude of fuck you, I'm not going to take this crap. And again, it's an attitude everybody should be adopting.
I agree. That's what I think as well, As I've said before.
Not that I didn't like your professor level. Sir, please. Aye. Sorry I was late.
But that's it, and as I've admitted before, sometimes I can take it too far, but, I'm never going to shy or make apologies for the contempt to the bullshit, and I'll always display that attitude because that's what it naturally invokes in me. Anybody trying to lie to me, bullshit me, offer me garbage, then, that contempt is always going to show. So if people are not offering me that and they're not trying to bring it to me, then I'm not going to display it, So,
and again, absolute compassion for people coming to this for the first time, right? Still being confused, right? Yeah. But, not the people who have been at it for 5 years and who won't address those first principles that we point out. Mm-hmm. They're just fucking at it, Dale. I mean, they really are deceitful and contemptible assholes that, we shouldn't be, wasting any time on and pointing them out all the time.
That's it.
The let's say the people coming who are still, how should I say, rhetorically underdeveloped and don't understand logical fallacies, or as I call it, the ignoratio elenchi, the ignorance of how to refute an argument.
Yeah.
Or I've got some sympathy for these people because I was at the same place myself. Even after all that long years of study and whatever my life experience. So. Compassion there, but not for the cunts who are just repeating and at it.
That's it. That's it. That vicious contempt that I show is purely at these people, the same characters over and over again, bringing us the same bollocks, antagonising, trying to disrupt. It's all based at that kind of level. Again, for anybody new, there is compassion. Again, you see it when we go out and we speak to people in the street, we go to the university. The mannerisms are there. That's where people need to gauge it. Here, it's about expression. There's a bit of character play. There's whatever else. But you shouldn't need to keep repeating that to people. We should be smart enough to realise that now. So.
Yep. And I mean, people, as we've said this many times before as well, people shouldn't think we came from that place too. So, I do have, as I say, every sympathy. Yeah. Knowing from. The transformation that I had to go through in my own head, and the difference or the snapping out, the waking up, call it whatever you want. So I've absolutely sympathy for the folks.
Because it's not easy, and it takes a period of time for it to actually set in, and you still go through waves. Maybe not so much now, but that first kind of period, the first year and a half, you're going through waves of. Emotional and psychological disruption and turmoil, because that's real cognitive dissonance. But again, it's a display of that intellectual honesty, the willingness to address things that you assume to be true, resolve it, move on. That shows character, that shows strength. As I pointed out before with the Patrick Moore thing, these attributes used to be lauded, they used to be applauded. and respected. But now we're in a situation where it's the total opposite. If you go anywhere out of the rigid box, it's just attack, and put down after put down. It's absolutely retarded,
Yep.
And people are talking about,
I know there's
the Stone Age.
Go.
Well, as I say, psychologically, and what's been displayed to us is that these people are in the Stone Age. They're cavemen. They're retards. They're not representing objective inquiry, skepticism, production, progress, and none of that stuff.
No, they're trying to twist it on their heads and make it out as if we're the stone men and the cavemen. And I agree. I mean, anybody who hasn't seen that, I think Do You Speak Venusian? Mm-hmm. That Patrick Stewart documentary. It's well worth a look because, as you say, they have a much more open and honest attitude to the people that they spoke to.
Yeah.
People with seemingly weird ideas, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at their thought processes behind it, not so weird.
No.
I remember that one professor who says, why do we always have to think the sun is a big hot ball?
Mm-hmm.
If you go down to your power station and put your hand on the outside of the wall, it's not hot, right?
Exactly.
But it's the thing that's powering your electric heater at home,
Exactly.
So it's so easy to fall into those kind of traps of thinking.
That's it.
From the education system, and we get to believe that stuff without ever really checking it for ourselves.
Exactly. and understanding the reasoning processes of people that tells you a bigger story. Rather than just taking everything on face value. It doesn't fit your paradigm or your belief system, and you just hand-wave dismiss everything. That just makes you a fucking retard as far as I'm concerned. You're a cult fanatic, when you don't have the ability to engage with people to understand the reasoning processes and look at it with intellectual honesty. And then you see the difference in attitude, as we said with the Patrick Moore thing. That's the standard that I think we should be aiming for. That's where we should be at. So when people are saying we're retarding things, no. It's not us. It's your mainstream propaganda bullshit and agenda that's retarded people. Because look at the shift in attitude, from 50 years ago. It's absolutely incredible. It's night and day.
Yeah, I mean, people are, especially in academia, are not used to being questioned, right?
That's it.
And they never question themselves either, because they're usually, such pompous, assholes, right? That they don't see the necessity. They think they're smarter. So, this whole, idea of having an honest inquiry and being able to ask a reasonable question without, fear of ridicule or hate or anger or fear, right? That seems to definitely have gone from society. And, I think the educational system has a huge role to play in that mess.
Yeah.
So,
and the media, the media is constantly at it. It's refining the box of acceptance and what's expected of you and what's normal and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So it's across the board you can see it being implemented and what's been done. But the education system, definitely that's the backbone probably, because that's where they're getting you young and instilling the base foundations of it. The rest of it's just to reaffirm and keep you under the hypnotic fucking trance.
So. And I mean, they can't get you young enough. They want to put you in kindergartens now where you're even more weaker and gullible than any other age. And I find that sickening. But there's actually people out there screaming for more kindergarten places, right? Please give me a place where I can put my kids in your hands, in your responsibility. Shun it all. When they're 2. And you're like that. No, how did we end up in that mess?
Exactly.
How come the kids are not at home and getting self-taught?
And the majority again as well. It's not just the education. The majority of people their kids have got phones and iPads, and there's so many subliminals and narratives being weaved into their psyche by being exposed to these screens. So people need to take responsibility for what's they're exposing their children to.
Absolutely. I mean, if you put a 2-year-old for most of his life, starting at that young age in front of a flat screen, and he starts or she believes in those images at that early age, Jesus Christ, Dale. I mean, it's so hard to get away from that addiction when you're older. And it is a fucking addiction at the end of the day, what they're doing, right?
That's it.
So,
you see that it breeds dependency. I see it with my older daughter now. She can't get away from the screen. We went to a funeral a couple of weeks ago, and she's getting out the motor, and it's like 1 foot out the motor, and the fucking phone, tick, 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 right, I'm coming, for fucking hell. You know what I mean? You can see they're agitated because they've got a limb missing.
I think I've said this before, but my kids, I refused to give them a mobile phone until they were 16.
Yeah.
Just so that they understood that and it made them stronger, Dale, because everybody else around them had one, and they had to take a bit of stick for it. How come you haven't got one, and you are all retarded and backwards, But to be honest, it strengthened their character,
Exactly.
And it definitely avoided at least partial harm, I think, and brainwashing. So
Yeah.
But it's hard to get away from in any environment nowadays, isn't it? It's 24/7, isn't it?
Exactly.
They're trying to bombard you with the nonsense. So
exactly, and they've upped it over the last 4 years or so. You can see the definite increase in the propaganda, the bullshit,
Geez, I think there was they're just zombies. I think I mean, it's like literally the globe is walking around and it doesn't know it's dead. Still,
Exactly.
Anybody who's actually purporting that is, for me, a zombie scientist.
And the ones
I mean, he really doesn't understand the game is long over, but they're still walking around pretending to be alive.
It's still bringing them power and money, though. That's why they're clinging onto it for dear life.
And there's a sucker born every minute. I think somebody once said. So
ready to buy any old product, regardless of how absurd it is.
Yeah.
So fuck them. Yeah. And just keep plodding away, mate.
Oh, absolutely.
Aye. So
I didn't want to hijack the conversation here. Maybe there was other folk wanting to come on. Or
no, well, the floor was open. I posted it in the chat box. So as always, we'll talk about whatever, and then offer them up the opportunity to come in and discuss whatever it is they've got an issue with or whatever. But
well, come on, Mr. PhD guy. He was big mouthing in the chat as usual.
No, they just run away.
Run away. Yeah. Listen, I'm just going to take a quick break. Till I'll be back in a 25.
No worries, mate. No worries.
Yeah.
Alright. Chat box. Aye. Take your whiteboard everywhere you party pack. Sometimes Carey skates. No, I've not seen that. Beyond belief. I'll need to check that out. I'll check that out. So as I say, I think we've covered whatever was in the title here. I'll just come back to some of it. The magnetism, this notion of pull, gravity. These mechanisms that they imagine are there are just ridiculous, totally retarded. Even when we're investigating magnetism, as I ask, what are people imagining is going on when they use words like attract and pull and all this stuff? Because it's, as far as I can see, it's just magic. That's what they're invoking. Invisible, magical nonsense. That again, goes away from what we know, what we understand, and what we can apply to everyday living, Alan Paisley, Peter. I'll be looking at gravity. Well, can I touched on it, Emerald Rider? It's the same stuff with the, things being pulled to the centre of the earth and the moon pulling the oceans and all this crap. It's good with the memes, Bill. You heard about the island starvation. I know it's a sensitive, but I read that 5 million died in that note. Starvation by Britain. These groups are enemies. Aye. It's that, Anton. It's, any man that thinks they can go and conquer some other man and take over the land and fucking dictate and put infrastructure in and dictate what should be done and what should not be done, then that, to me, is an aspect of the enemy that I was talking about. Cheers, mate. Cheers, Calvin. Hope you're well, mate. I'll read the rest of that later. I can just see the wee front bit of it. If you just keep repeating the lies, then that's what happens. And then the lies become more complex. You've experienced that in your life. If you've dealt with liars, compulsive liars, manipulators, they just add on and add on and add on until it becomes like, that's like gaslighting. You just can't fathom out what's going on. You start doubting your own sanity, and then you just kind of end up clouding over and going, aye, well, I'll not resolve it then because it seems too complex to resolve. And that's exactly the state they want you in. If it can't be laid out simplistically with the integers, the mechanisms, then we've got a problem. Who's asking for evidence of what? What are they asking for evidence of? Nice one, Peter. So again, I'm just going to ask, I'll stick that in the chat box quick as well. For anybody that's got anything to add, I'll say on the matters being discussed this evening. As I say, you're having to repeat things. I thought the first time that I brought this push-pull stuff that, it would be, people would get it, but some people don't, and they still invoke magical stuff. The PhD guys that think they know it all are exactly that. They think they know it all. They know deep down that it's bullshit, and when they come up against somebody that they know understands their bullshit and how to identify it and expose it, then liars don't want to be in the company of people like that. Liars and deceivers will run a mile. They're looking for chaff. They're looking for weak minds, people that they can sway, that they can prey upon, because they're predatory in nature. And I don't mean predatory in any sort of, like putting them up there as something special or good. They're just weak. Fuck knows, Helen DeGeneres probably still running about scared of numbers. Oh, squiggles on a screen. Oh, be terrified. Or he's running about thinking he's doxing me by posting my name and my address up. I already done that. I don't know why they think they're achieving something, or they think they're going to scare me or something. I don't know. What's Alan Blair going on about? Gravity. Describe it. Describe the mechanisms of gravity. That'll be a laugh. Let's hear it. We've already torn it apart a million times, so another once is not going to matter. That's it, Kerry Skates. It's not just that the whole world called me, Hank. We've had live observations on this channel where we had Andrew in New Zealand. We had somebody else on the east coast of Australia. We had the sun here in the sky, visible. We also had the sun visible in New Zealand and Australia at the very same time. So, just wee simple observations like that's a huge problem. Not that it needs any more, for the globe Earth. But people seem to forget these wee things. And you go Emerald Rider as well. Excellent. What are you asking out of curiosity? What are we asking here? Evidence of what? I just keep seeing asking for evidence. I'm missing something. What are they asking? There you go, Pico 250's offering, any help with any observations. He's in Melbourne, Australia. Keep that in mind, Pico. I spoke to Andrew about that, that we should keep documenting that. The fact that we can all, have a line of sight to the sun. That's just not going to work on a globular Earth. As I said, know that we need that, but we'll just keep hammering the nails in. Invented the age of the Earth. There'll be some sophist wanker out there who'll tell him it's fucking 4.5 billion years old. Because reasons. Right. Nobody's got anything to offer, really.
Hey Dale, I'm back.
How you doing, mate?
Alright.
I was just about
sort out something to drink. Where's your tea?
Well,
the tea ladies.
I'm done. I was just
Alright.
I was just about to wrap up there. There's no people are no there's nothing being requested or any kind of topic of discussion. So unless you've got anything you want to say, mate.
No, not directly, no. But maybe on Saturday again. I was thinking on a few topics I'd quite like to talk about, so
Perfect.
Kind of knackered today anyway, and if class is out, I will say goodbye, Professor.
Yes, you're dismissed.
Thanks for the chat, as always.
No worries. We'll do it, if you want, we'll do a wee presentation at the start on Saturday before we open up as usual. So.
Cool. I'll prepare something. Yep, I've got a few topics I wanted to bring up, so.
Perfect.
Sound.
Excellent, mate.
All right.
Nice one.
And thanks to everybody in the chat, all the listeners, and thanks again to yourself, my man. See you soon.
Take it easy, buddy. Cheers.
Bye.
Right. So, just as Gav said, cheers, everybody. We'll be back Saturday, as usual. So, we'll see you all then. Bye.